Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It is FPC Radio Live. It's Friday, July 7th, 2023, and we're just rolling along here. We are actually no, we're in probably the worst stretch of time, John, to be covering sports full time because there's only baseball right now. And I know I'm not saying that to insult baseball, but it's July. It's not even, we have past 4th of July, but it's not even the All-Star break, John. So we have a long, long way to go in the baseball season before we can really, really start getting excited here. But we do have some interesting news, or it's not news, but a bit of a exciting debut. The NBA's number one overall pick, Victor Wembanyama, makes his debut tonight in Las Vegas. Sold out crowd, John. I kind of wish I was there to see it. Not just that, but that sphere. It's finally complete, and good God, is that creepy. Like, have you seen some of the demonstrations they've put on that thing so far?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you got to check. I mean, like lifelike eyeballs. Like, I feel like this would be distracting. You know, I mean, it's a sphere. I'm just waiting for the Death Star, man. Like, come on. Like that's an easy thing to do.
Well, it is Las Vegas, so anything's possible. Like, they're very creative there, and they have unlimited money. So whatever the construction cost is, whatever it is to put this together, they'll do it. So let's come up with some crazy ideas.
Yeah, unlimited money, but a limited water supply. That's something.
True. It's a desert after all.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's fast. I mean, it's obviously a big project. The MGM the whatever it is, the not MGM, the whatever company owns Madison Square Garden, whatever that is. I think they're the ones that are building this. Whatever it is, it's billions of dollars, and it's just a fascinating building, just another oddity in the Las Vegas Strip. But they were doing some pretty cool things with that, and I'm sure that's going to be on display if you're watching that Summer League game tonight. Are you going to be watching tonight?
Sure, I want to see Big Vic, see how he handles himself. Obviously, unless he goes out and gets 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 assists, it's probably going to be a disappointment, right? Because the expectations are so high. Maybe Britney Spears will be on the court guarding him at some point. Because he's got some experience doing that.
Yeah, that's something. I mean, the poor kids in in the country for what, like a month and a half, barely the number one overall pick, and already mucking it up with Britney Spears. Apparently, if anyone hadn't seen that story, apparently she approached him and his security guard. It took action. Hey, look, I mean, I guess that's what security guards are there for, and maybe they're learning the ropes a bit here, just like Victor will, Big Vic, as you call him, will learn the NBA ropes, so to speak. So, interesting. I'm going to want to watch because, like you said, I mean, this is, he's being talked about as one of the very few big name players coming into the draft. I mean, you're invoking names like LeBron James when comparing him to other former highly touted first overall picks. So it's obviously going to be very interesting to play because, look, the reality of it is, John, you should see a big game from Big Vic because given the hype, given the expectation, and given, his reputation for what he's done, look, you're going up against sub-NBA players for the most part in the Summer League. This is not NBA competition, so I expect him to, dominate.
Yeah, he should. I mean, look, he won the MVP in the French League, which is a highly competitive league. You're going against other rookies, some second-year players, some guys who are trying to get on rosters, that type of thing. So he should be by far the most talented guy on the court. He may not be the most experienced, but the talent level is at the highest level. We're talking about someone who's 7'4" with guard skills. So we'll have to see how that works out going forward. And I'm sure the San Antonio Spurs are going to just be holding their breath, right, while he's out there playing because, with a guy that size, a misstep, you got to be careful with turned ankles or any kind of knee injuries. So I'm sure they're just going to be holding their breath. But, yeah, the expectations are high. We're talking about one of the 3 players probably in the history of the game who are coming in with almost incredible to reach expectations. We're talking about the then Lou Alcindor in 1969. LeBron in 2003. Now it's Big Vic here in 2023. Those are the 3 guys that come to mind first about they were expected to come in and dominate right from the start.
Yeah, and I mean we've talked about it in the past, and LeBron kind of very, in a very rare instance, kind of fulfilled those expectations. Now, his career has fallen short to some, and look, I mean, this is we're not going to get into a. I know you might want to. I know you might be chomping at the bit there, John, to get into a deep LeBron James discussion. But the point is, living up to this type of hype is almost impossible. So, like,
Mhm.
as good as Victor may end up being, perhaps there's nothing he can necessarily do except for be like Bill Russell in 2023 or in the modern era.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I mean, that's just kind of like where we're at right now when it comes to sports discussion and kind of you're either great or you're not, situation. And I think, look, there's a lot of pressure that goes into this. He seems like he has a pretty level head on him for being such a young kid. But there is going to be an adjustment period in dealing with these expectations. And I guess fortunately, being in a place like San Antonio, which obviously does have the rich history as a franchise, but it's not New York. It's not like a big city that, again, the bigger the city, the more reckless the sports coverage is. I'm not sitting here trying to hold like Boston or New York to a higher standard when it comes to journalistic integrity. No, it's actually probably the exact opposite, John. I think it gets a little bit more reckless and wild, wild west. So, yeah, if you're a young kid trying to just focus on basketball, that's another element that he fortunately doesn't have to deal with. Now, I don't live in San Antonio. I can't speak for their local media, but I'm going to go out on a hunch and say that it's not as, let's say, overly negative as say Boston or New York or some of these other big cities.
they're probably not as intrusive, right? It is the only game in town, but you've got an organization that's really good at keeping players focused on basketball. Obviously, you've got Tony Parker and Boris Diaw, who had great careers with the Spurs, both from France. So I think that they can be mentors to Big Vic, and that's going to help him out quite a bit. Also, when you look at this, if you look at what the expectations are, let's say he plays 15 years in the NBA and wins 2 championships and has a career similar to, say, Kevin Durant or Hakeem Olajuwon, he's going to be looked at as a disappointment, right, in terms of what the expectations are. And that's unfortunate because we're talking about Durant and Hakeem Olajuwon, top 15, top 20
Well,
players of all time, they're all-time greats. But because of the expectations, he has to be in the same
forget.
say, Bill Russell or Kareem or all those guys.
Well, I was going to say, forget about other players from other teams. Tim Duncan,
Sure.
his
There
own
you go.
franchise. I mean, like,
Yep.
you look, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, somewhere in between, he's going to have to fall. Obviously, David Robinson didn't have the championships, plural, that Tim Duncan did, but at the same time, you're just in your own franchise. I mean, that's an expectation. Now, again, folks that are diehard Spurs fans, I mean, they may look at it differently because, again, the way teams are covered in different cities and different whatever, it's different. I mean, there's some places that just have far more appreciation for their franchise and whether or not they win, lose, or whatever. You know what I mean? There's much more, where in Boston, it's like, speaking from experience, obviously, not my experience, but just, of living in Boston and listening to the sports discourse in that city. And it's similar in New York where it's like, one thing goes wrong and it's the end of the world or everything's so negative. And it's, even when you do win, there's always something negative to find about it. I feel like in San Antonio, and again, I mean, if there's any Spurs fans out there, that know differently, please speak up. But I feel like it's not as, like you said, intrusive, and it's not as just overtly negative. I mean, that's the crazy thing, and that's a fascinating thing that I think we haven't figured out yet. Is that, I mean, I think we understand why, because negativity sells, but it's just become locally very, very, very negative. And I don't think it's like that all across the country and in different regions that, with different sports, whether kind of like what you said. I mean, the Spurs are the only game in town, so maybe you have a little bit more of an appreciation for that. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also in the Northeast, you're talking about Boston, New York, Philadelphia. Those are the three cities that come to mind when there's a lot of
Yeah,
negativity. But it's kind of the way we live up here.
it's
The
true.
winters are cold and
Eh,
long. It's gray. The summers are hot and
have you
humid.
seen the traffic?
Right, the traffic. People like are on top of each other. It's just a very, very hyper intensive region, right? When you go from Boston, New York, Philadelphia. I mean, you can go from Boston to Philadelphia 300 miles. I mean,
Yeah.
that's call it the megalopolis or the metroplex, or whatever. Call it something. Call it Dante's Inferno if you want, because it's really, really a different type of place, and not everyone's cut out for that. Like we've seen how many players play for the Yankees. Ed Whitson is one who comes to mind who just couldn't function there.
Yeah.
Just could not function playing in New York. So I think Big Vic is going to a really solid franchise. He's got Greg Popovich as his coach. He's got a support system there with Boris Diaw and Tony Parker can kind of mentor him, and he can grow as a player. So it's a good situation for him. He's not going to the Lakers where, okay, here's the next great player going to the Lakers, or he's not going to Boston, New York, or Philadelphia where the expectations would be through the roof. And look, if he went 0 for 8 with 4 rebounds in his first game, everybody would be calling talk radio to trade him.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different mentality in San Antonio than obviously in the Northeast.
Oh, for sure. And like, I like that's the thing. And he seems again like a soft spoken guy, and Tim Duncan was a soft spoken guy, so, and I think that's a, kind of a kill you with silence type of thing. Like, I mean, Tim Duncan was deadly on the court, but he wasn't in, the get in your face, like let you know it type of thing. He just did it by just consistent execution. And I think it's really a perfect ideal situation for him to land. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's going to work well for him, I think, if they're able to surround him with some players. Again, even LeBron James, his first 2 years in the league, didn't make the playoffs. In his third year, he made it. His fourth year, he got to the finals, because you're getting the first pick for a reason. You don't have a lot of talent, so you add this young player to that. But now you've got to kind of put some pieces around them, some veterans, maybe some shooters that, can benefit from his elite passing skills. I mean, this guy has it all. I mean, he can do anything that you can think of on a basketball court. I mean, they're talking about the fact that he may be the best player in basketball in 3 years. I mean, that's a reach to say that for someone who's never played an NBA game, but the skill set seems pretty exciting.
Well, how about this? How big of a reach, I guess, kind of pun intended, because of the topic or discussion or the topic I'm going to bring up, but like, how big of a reach is it to say that he might be one of the better defensive players in the league almost from day one? Because it's going to take time for him to learn the offense and kind of get comfortable in that aspect of the game. But I feel like defensively, just based on his advantages physically, and of course his natural ability, he's going to be one of the better defenders in the league right from the get-go.
I would think so, absolutely. Again, you don't have power centers like you did years ago. I mean, Joel Embiid is one that comes to mind. Jokic is more of a finesse center. I mean, you get players like Karl Anthony Towns that are very comfortable taking threes. His ability to switch and be nimble and fluid is going to allow him to even contest three-point shots. Now, again, that's going to tax his body somewhat, so you're going to have to be careful with that. But without question, that's what they're talking about. The excitement is that he can be an elite defender as well as being an elite offensive player. And when you put that package together, you've got a guy who can be in contention for being the best player in basketball, I'll say maybe 5 years from now. You've got to get to that point. Kareem became the best player in basketball, but probably 3 or 4 years into the league, and I think LeBron maybe 4 or 5 years into the league. So it wouldn't shock us if this guy does the same if these expectations are accurate.
Yeah, and look, I part of it's physical. You just need to grow a little bit. I mean, the kid's so young that it's like, you know what I mean? You just need time to kind of develop a little bit. And I think if he does everything right, then, he's going to set himself up in a pretty good position. So, yeah, I'll be watching that tonight. So I saw, actually, this is before, we're not going to be on here too long, but I did want to bring this up because I saw this and I had to chuckle because, well, we talked about the debut of Seinfeld yesterday. Apparently someone in Massachusetts, or there was a book in a Massachusetts library that was returned after 120 years overdue, John, 120 years. Now, I don't know what the the charge would that be? 5 cents a day? Is that the still going rate? Um, but I saw that, and obviously immediately, just like when I see most things, I automatically find some way to connect it to Seinfeld. This one was pretty easy because of, well, perhaps one of the better episodes, but by far one of the best guest appearances on the show with Bookman, the library cop. So obviously that first came to mind. I don't think it was Tropic of Cancer. That was 120 years overdue.
No, let's hope not, because that didn't even hit the market till whenever. But it would be. I just did some quick math here. It'd be about $2,200 in late fees.
Oh, that's actually. I mean,
years.
I guess that's not too
that
bad.
Well, I've got to figure this out though. It's 365 days in a year times 120, so that's 43,800 days. If it's 5 cents per day, it comes to $2,200. I think it's probably more than 5 cents a day. I mean, maybe it's gone up. If it was $1 a day, now you're talking $44,000,
Yeah.
which at that point, just buy them a new book at that point, right? I worked in a video store. This is how old I am. I managed a video store in the mid '80s, and this is back in the VHS days, and people would take movies out, and the late fees were like $1.50 a day, and some people had them out for like 50 days, which is like $75. Like at that point, the guy just kept the movie because that's what they were going for back then. It was like the late fees were more than the actual cassette. So we used to get into wheeling and dealing with the customers at that point.
Well, because early on, especially too, obviously this is why video stores became necessary, where the video copies were so astronomically priced. I mean, they weren't $20. They were hundreds of dollars. That's why, you couldn't just buy them. Now, I'm not speaking from experience. That was a little bit before my time, John. Just a little bit. But
I bought a ton of them. I wish I had the money that I spent on, like all my favorite movies were like $79.95.
Yeah.
And I got a discount because I managed a video store. Like half my check every week was going to buy VHS tapes that were kind of like not even usable a decade later because, things would start to rub off. So you put the cassette in like 10, 12 years later, you could barely see the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So I've spent plenty of time. I actually lost a whole collection I had like Simpsons and a bunch of wrestling pay-per-views from back in the day, 90s stuff, Lost in a flood. Unfortunately, it ruined my poor cassette tapes, but
I know.
Hey.
Well, today is July 7th, right? So 7/7. Another Seinfeld reference. Remember what George was going to name his son?
Of course. I named my cat Seven because of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, happy 7 days to your cat.
That's true. Actually, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because now I'm going to go celebrate that later. It'll give me an excuse to pepper one of my cats with many gifts. Not that I need that anyways, but no, I it was a stray cat, and I just happened to say, why not just name it Seven? Why not? They're like, all right, 7 it is. Mickey Mantle's number.
Home, it doesn't care what you named it.
Yeah, exactly. Now and now there's a lot of there's I like names with some sort of history or not history that I mean Seinfeld I guess is history in my history, but there's some sort of story behind it. So and in this case it's a Seinfeld reference, and technically I guess if you want to get really deep, and Married with Children reference because they named their kid Seven or Bobcat, what's his face? The cousin of he played the cousin of Peg, and they named their kid Seven. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. I think was like the line that he used, like 7 kids. So whatever. Anyways, we're getting down a rabbit hole of like 80s and 90s television. That far from what we were talking about to start the show, which was the Summer League debut of Big Vic. So, but anyways, we're gonna wrap it up with that. Monday we'll be back. I mean, again, we're just kind of getting through, John. We're just we're trying to get through this dead time and know that eventually we're just gonna be full on NFL. just things are going to all of a sudden hit the ground running, and we're not going to look back until, well, March, pretty much, John. I mean, that's going to happen soon. As soon as training camp really, really starts. It's kind of a dead period, but when it does, we're going to be good. So, any final thoughts to leave the folks with this weekend?
Final thoughts. Well, since it's 7-7, most famous athletes that wore number 7. So, like John Elway comes to mind for football, right? Ben Roethlisberger, Elway greater than Roethlisberger, clearly. 7 in hockey would be Phil Esposito, one of my idols growing up. Obviously, Mickey Mantle, number 7. Basketball, I'm trying to remember. Nate Archibald wore number 7.
Not too many memorable 7s that I can think of, though.
No. 6 is Russell.
Yeah.
And then we all remember, Jordan, LeBron with the 23s, and Kobe was 24, and also wore number 8. So a lot of 30s in basketball. Magic was 32. Bird was 33. But yeah, I would say Elway for football, Esposito for hockey, and surely Mickey Mantle in baseball. So happy 7-7 day.
Yep, and happy Amber Alert into my headset right now. Sorry, folks. There we go. Problems with having your phone connected to the mixer that's running this whole program, that sometimes things like that happen. So, but that was actually our get the hell off the air alarm. Like we're outstaying our welcome, so to speak. But
what's the Amber Alert say? Is there a missing cat somewhere? Is it that?
No, okay. I think it was a car alert or something. I don't know. It was just it was loud. It was very, very loud and intrusive. But
it's Florida. Anything's possible.
Anything is possible, John. Anything is possible. So, all right, that's going to do it. Like I said, we will be back on Monday, and hey, maybe we'll have some DeAndre Hopkins news. You never know. Our luck, it's probably going to break as soon as we get off the air here. But nonetheless, we will be back on Monday to talk about it if it does happen. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you then.